We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glory UGA podcast, brought to you by our good friends at MyBookie and Alumni Hall. And today on the show, guys, after a full week of breaking down this game, it's time for that final score prediction for this massive top 10 SEC showdown between number 5 Georgia and number 10 Texas here in Athens on Saturday night. So go ahead, guys, if you're a diehard Georgia fan, before I reveal that prediction, go ahead, subscribe right now, turn those notifications on, because everything we do here is 100% designed for you. So subscribe, like, comment. What is your prediction for this big top 10 showdown here in Athens over the weekend? But all right, guys, usually on these prediction videos that I put out every week, I like to give you 4 to 5 keys to the game, 4 to 5 things that if Georgia does these things, if we check off each of these boxes, the Dogs are going to win the football game. Now, last week, ahead of the Mississippi State game, I trimmed that list down to 2 things because I felt that State game was very straightforward, right? And this week, I think that's even more the case. I'm going to trim that list down even more because in a game like this, guys, between 2 very talented teams, between 2 very well-coached teams, the margins are exceedingly small. So what I ultimately believe this game will come down to is pretty simple. Which team will find a way to run the football with more consistency between the hedges on Saturday night? Now, why is that the case? Well, for Georgia, guys, with the way that Texas can rush the passer, the Horns are second nationally in sacks this year. You've got to stay out of 3rd and long. You cannot put yourself in that position all night long. That's a recipe for disaster for Georgia. I'm not saying you got to run wild on Texas, like put up 3 bills like we did against Mississippi State last week. I'm not saying you're going to go out and break records. I'm saying just run the ball well enough to stay out of those 3rd and long situations, right? Get 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards on 1st and 2nd down. Get to 2nd and 6, 2nd and 7. Get to 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. Stay out of 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, guys. Because what does that do? It keeps the Texas pass rushers off balance, right? If we put ourselves in situations where the Texas defense knows that we are in an obvious passing situation, I'm not saying that, we're going to stay out 3rd and long every single possession, but we can't find ourselves consistently in that spot because if we are, those Texas pass rushers, guys like Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill Jr., Trey Moore, you name it, guys. You got a ton of them out there that can get after the passer. They're just going to pin their ears back, and our offensive line is much healthier right now and playing at the highest level it has, I think, in probably 2 years. I mean, we were a certified MASH unit for most of the season, but we're back now, guys. We're playing well. But when you get into 3rd and long like that against a team that rushes the passer that well, I don't care who your offensive line is, man. It's tough. That's a tall task for any offensive line. So we got to keep those pass rushers off balance, not know whether it's going to be run or pass. Get our play action game working. You saw what we were able to do last week. I know the Texas defense is obviously very different than Mississippi State defense, but the Georgia's kind of gotten that play action game going. Generate some explosive plays off of that. But again, if we are in 3rd and long all night, if that's the situation we find ourselves in, guys, I'm just telling you, it could be a very long night for us Georgia faithful inside Sanford Stadium. Because again, Texas is elite rushing the passer, 2nd nationally in sacks. Now for Texas, on the other side, I also think it's very important for them to find a way, even though they haven't really been able to run the football all year, but I think it's important for them to be able to find a way to run the ball in a hostile environment, guys. Because look, when you're in a hostile environment like that, as raucous as it's going to be in Sanford Stadium, that place is going to be rocking. You're not going to have the benefit of snap count if you're the Texas offensive line. You're not. So that puts you at a disadvantage off the jump right there, right? And that's an offensive line. Let's be real, guys. I know they're also getting healthier. They were banged up for large parts of the year as well. They're getting healthier. That will certainly help them. But that is an offensive line that has struggled all year long, especially in road environments. And guys, I'm just going to tell you, they have not played in a road environment this year, the likes of which they will play on Saturday night. They just haven't, guys. Ohio State at noon, great environment. It's at noon. This is Sanford Stadium at night. Bloodlust will be high. Top 10 matchup. I don't want to say a college football playoff berth on the line, but this could go a long way to helping Georgia kind of seal up a college football playoff berth. So it's going to be a crazy environment, which will make it really hard on that offensive line. Again, an offensive line that struggled on the road. And look, guys, I know that the Georgia pass rush has struggled this year. That's well documented. We talk about every single freaking week here on this show. But if we're paying attention, as we have been here on this channel, it started to show some life in recent weeks. And again, when you're playing at home in a raucous environment, when the Texas offense have to deal with the crowd noise, that's going to give our pass rushers an extra beat, an extra half step or so off the ball, right? And that could be the difference between getting the quarterback and not getting the quarterback. And that's the quarterback in Arch Manning, the offensive line for Texas who struggled on the road. Arch Manning, with the exception of the Mississippi State game, which was the most recent road game, he was good in that game, put up some big numbers. But outside of that game, he has been very, very shaky on the road. So if we can get them at 3rd and long with an offensive line that has struggled in those situations, especially on the road, against a Georgia pass rush that's starting to find some life. We're changing the personnel, right? We're bringing some different pressure packages, giving teams some different looks there. That could be really tough for the Texas team here in this situation. And if you've watched Arch Manning all year, again, he's starting. Like, you can go back and watch the deep dive preview I did earlier in the week. If you want a full-on comprehensive breakdown of this game, looking at it from every conceivable angle, go check out that deep dive preview I did. This is just for the ultimate prediction, kind of putting a little bow on all these things. But as I said on the deep dive preview earlier in the week, guys, if we can get Texas into 3rd and long routinely, I believe we have a chance to force Arch Manning into some of those mystifying decisions that he is prone to making. Yes, he is playing better right now. His last 2 games have been statistically his best games of the year, no doubt. Now, well, obviously, also look at the competition. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State are 2 of the 3 worst teams in the SEC against the pass. There's that. Ironically, the only team worse than those 2 teams against the pass against SEC opponents is actually the Texas Longhorns. But when you're playing again in a game like this, where the margins are as small as they're going to be with 2 talented teams, 2 well-coached teams, in a game like this, a quarterback who's prone to making decisions, he's prone to be making some bad decisions, being forced into a bad decision, that could be the difference between winning and losing the football game. And there's this too, guys. On a related note, it comes back to being able to run the football. When margins are small like this, things like red zone efficiency show up in a bigger way. Scoring touchdowns rather than scoring field goals, having to kick field goals can be a difference in a game when you get inside the red zone. Because what do you have to do when you get in the red zone, guys? When the field condenses like that, what do you have to be able to do to punch the ball in the end zone? You got to be able to run the football. That's why Texas is in the bottom third of the SEC in touchdown scoring percentage inside the red zone, because they have not been able to run the football. So if that is the case, as I believe it is, and you can disagree, but if running the football is going to be a critical part of determining who wins this football game, which team will run the football better? That's the question of the hour, right? Now, for my money, I know if some Texas fans have found this video, I know what you're going to say. You're going to call me a homer. That's fine. But for my money, that's going to be Georgia. It won't be easy, guys. I'm not here to tell you that Georgia's going to run wild on Texas. I do not have any expectation that that's going to happen, because the Texas run defense, guys, absolutely has been flat out dominant this year. They're only giving up 78 rushing yards a game, giving up 93 rushing yards per game against SEC opponents. That 78 rushing yards per game they're allowing overall is good for 2nd nationally. This is an elite Texas run defense. Make no mistake about that. But on the flip side, Georgia has also been a borderline elite rushing offense. It's clearly what this Georgia offense does best. We're running for 192 yards a game, not just overall, but 192 a game against SEC opponents. And I expect Gunnar Stockton's legs to be a big part of the game plan in a game like this, to give Georgia numbers against that elite defense. When you're facing a team that's really good stopping the run like Texas is, well, how can you mitigate that? How can you find some sort of advantage? Well, if you have a quarterback that can run the football, you make him a big part of the game plan with his legs, because that gives you the numbers there and forces Texas to have to respond to that. And I do think that Mike Bobo has done a great job of this all year. I think he's going to do a great job of it in this game as well, in packaging plays and throwing a number of constraints at the Texas defense to keep them honest, to keep them off balance. And I do think Gunner's legs, his ability to run the football, the threat of Gunner running the football, will open up just enough room for Georgia's strong stable of running backs that are really coming on right now, especially Nate Frazier with a career day last week. Open up just enough room for those guys to do just enough on the ground to stay out of those 3rd and long situations. Again, I don't expect Georgia to run wild. I don't think anyone should expect that. But I do expect the Dogs to have more success on the ground than Texas does in this game. Because let's go to the other side, guys. The Georgia run defense isn't quite as good as the Texas run defense, but it's still a top 12 unit nationally. Texas is number 2, Georgia's number 12. Like, yeah, Texas is better stopping the run, but not by all that much. And then you look at the Texas run game, guys, it's been essentially non-existent all year long. Now, again, I know a Texas fan would tell you, been banged up on the offensive line. That's true. You know who else has also been banged up on the offensive line all year? That's right, Georgia. And they found a way to run the ball for 192 yards a game against SEC opponents. Well, Texas, guys, they're only running for 81, not 181, 81 yards a game in SEC play. They have rushed for 100 yards or fewer in 4 of their 5 SEC games to this point. Let me give you some more numbers here, guys. Against the Mississippi State defense, the defense that Georgia just ran for 300 plus on a week ago, Texas in that same stadium in Starkville ran for 72 yards on 32 carries, 2.3 yards per rush. Against the Kentucky defense, Texas ran for 47 yards on 28 carries, a whopping 1.7 yards per rush. Guys, Georgia, for comparison's sake, against Mississippi State and Kentucky, those two defenses, Georgia ran for an average of 242 yards a game against those two defenses. And what did Texas do? 72 yards and 47 yards. Barely broke 100 in those two games combined. Now, I do, with a bye week, I expect Steve Sarkisian, as good of an offensive mind as he is, I do have a lot of respect for him as a play caller. I do firmly expect him to have some wrinkles to throw at us because that's what this guy does. He's had time, and that's going to be something we're going to have to be ready for. But can you throw enough wrinkles into this Texas ground game to change your fortunes that dramatically against a top 12 rush defense? Call me skeptical. I'm not going to say impossible. Nothing's impossible in college football, guys. But let's just say I'm very skeptical of that being the case. Now, look, guys, I will tell you this. Texas does have some real things going for it in this game. This is a good football team, y'all. This is, again, the number 2 rush defense in the country. That's a heck of a place to start, right? Especially against a Georgia offense that has shown that it can win shootouts, has shown it can beat you throwing the football, but it's still a Georgia offense that wants to establish the run first, get play action working off of that. I also think a non-mutual bye that Texas is enjoying coming into this game, just like Auburn had a non-mutual bye at the Georgia game, I think that's an advantage. Some people might think I'm making too much of that, but I do think that's an advantage, especially against a Georgia defense that has had well-documented issues defending teams that have had extra time to prepare early in games. Go back and look at Tennessee. Go back and look at Alabama. Go back and look at Auburn in the first half of the game. Florida to a little bit of a lesser degree in the first half of that game. We've had more trouble stopping these teams when they've had extra time to prepare. Because why? Because they're throwing different things at us, guys. They're throwing wrinkles out there. They're throwing some constraints out there. And it's hard to prepare for that when you haven't seen it on tape. Changing tendencies. Hard to prepare for that when you haven't seen that on tape. And when you're talking about a head coach and Steve Sarkisian, who is one of the best offensive minds in the game, I think that is an advantage for them. I do. And obviously, guys, it's just a talented roster. Like, Texas has got a lot of talent on this football team. It's one of the most talented rosters in the country, bar none. And I would also say that Texas is playing its best football of the season right now. Beating Mississippi State, now that was overtime, but beating Vanderbilt at home, nice win. They're starting to kind of hit their stride a little bit more offensively. So this is a Texas team. Guys, I'm just going to tell you straight up. They are fully capable, of course, of coming into Athens and winning this football game. Georgia is 100% going to have to be at the top of its game to find a way to come out with a dub in this game. We can't have a first half like we did against Auburn, right? We cannot have a first half like that. Texas is way better, and it's way harder to crawl back against a defense like Texas if you fall down early. We need good Georgia in this football game to get the win. But here's this. While Texas is good, it's very much a formidable opponent. They have some things going for them in this game. They do. But the reality is, guys, if you've watched these teams throughout their first 9 games this season, Georgia has clearly been the better football team. Georgia has clearly been the more consistent football team. Georgia right now, if you look at total yards margin, is plus 1150 in total yards margin, outgetting our opponents by a total of 1,150 yards in the year. Texas, about half of that. Texas is roughly plus 600 in their total yards margin right now. And Georgia's done that against a slightly more difficult schedule than Longhorns. Georgia's strength of schedule right now, according to the Sagarin rankings, is 8, Texas at 16. Both tough schedules. Georgia a little bit tougher. Now, Texas does stop the run better than Georgia, slightly, but they do stop the run better. And the Horns rush the passer significantly better than the Dogs. That's a major advantage they have in this game. But that's really about it, guys. That really is. Georgia runs the ball significantly better than Texas does. Georgia has, in my opinion, the better backfield, the deeper backfield. Georgia has the better offensive line. Georgia has the more consistent quarterback. Georgia has the more clutch quarterback. Georgia has the more explosive offense. Georgia has the more efficient offense by a wide margin, the number 1 most efficient offense in the country, according to the FBI rankings, where Texas is in the high 30s. Georgia is far better in the red zone. Why? Because Georgia can run the football better. Georgia is significantly better against the pass. Georgia, believe it or not, Georgia fans, I know you don't you don't think this is the case, but look at the numbers. Georgia has actually given up fewer explosive plays than this Texas defense has. And on top of all that, Georgia's playing at home, at night, in a crazy environment. Those are the facts, guys. I'm not making that up. That's not me being a homer. Those are the facts. Don't take my word for it. Go look it up if you don't believe me. That's fine. Go look it up and you'll find exactly what I'm talking about here. And then from a matchup standpoint, again, I think this comes down to who can run the ball more consistently, more effectively in this game. And I just simply think that what we've seen throughout the season tells me that Georgia is more equipped to run the football more consistently than Texas is. And look, guys, if it's a tight game, it very well could be, guys. If this is a tight game late, easily could be that, guys. It's a very tight, two very talented teams, well-coached teams, small margins, right? Well, I'll go back to what I said in deep dive preview, if that ends up being the case. If it's a tight game late, which quarterback do you trust more? Let me just ask you that. Which quarterback do you trust more, especially in this setting in Athens, in Sanford Stadium at night? Do you trust the guy that looks like a deer in the headlights when adversity strikes in the biggest moments? Or do you trust the guy in Gunnar Stockton that has shown up time and time again when his team needs him the most? The guy that rises to the occasion, that elevates his game in the biggest moments when the lights are the brightest. Now, even the most diehard Texas fans out there, deep down in their hearts, know they would not say Arch Manning. They might tell you Arch Manning, but they know deep down in their hearts they're lying. They know it, guys. So it's going to be a war. I fully expect that, guys. The margins are going to be small. Two good teams, two well-coached teams, but with a better run game, with the more consistent, more trustworthy, more clutch quarterback at home, give me Georgia to pull out a thriller, a tight one here, 27-24. I'll say the Horns cover, but I'll say the Dogs win, Dogs on top. And that's what we're going to have on Saturday, guys. So we'll come back. We'll break down everything that happens on Saturday. And if I'm wrong, I'll own it, guys. I'll eat my crow. We'll break it down, and we'll look at what went wrong in this game. But right now, I got the Dogs on top, 27-24. So thank you guys so much for checking this episode out. I greatly appreciate you. If you are a diehard Georgia fan, go ahead, subscribe right now, and comment. Let me know, what is your prediction? Am I crazy? Am I crazy here, guys? Or do you think Georgia is going to win this football game? Love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for all your support. But I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs!
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.